Hi, Pete.
Hi, Christine. I keep on the
Yeah,
Instagram. I keep
it's just it doesn't seem to be working. Like it's like
oh,
so don't worry about it. I'm gonna cancel Instagram. So we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. So you can turn yours off. So don't worry about it. Okay.
okay.
So hi everyone. I see 5 people have joined. Say hi. Let us know where you are. So okay. Yeah. So I have Professor Pete here. He's a stress expert. And yeah. So instead of me introducing Pete, can I just call you Pete, or is it Professor? Did you go by Professor Pete?
Oh no, you can call me Pete. That's perfectly
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, so Pete, why don't you introduce yourself? I know we met through LinkedIn, and then I went on your podcast. So thank you for having me as a guest. So why don't you introduce yourself, Pete?
Sure. I,
Hello.
I go by Professor Pete Alexander on social media because Pete Alexander is a pretty common name. So I help
Mm.
differentiate myself a little bit there. But uh, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a stress relief coach, and I help hard driving leaders and professionals overcome their self-imposed barriers to success through team webinars and individual sessions. And my clients tell me that they and or their teams are dealing with high stress on the job, and they're often getting physical ailments. And working with me, they go from being overwhelmed to full of life. So it's a great thing that I do for people, and I really enjoy my work.
Yeah, Pete, you're frozen on my side. We can hear you, but you're frozen. So I don't know if the audience yeah, do you see Pete frozen, or yeah, you're not moving, but I can hear you. But so anyway, we're gonna keep
Oh boy.
going because I can still hear you.
Oh.
Yeah, so why don't we talk about
Uh-oh. Now I hear. I think you.
okay.
Okay. I'm on a direct connection, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, so as long as you can hear me, so okay,
Yeah.
why don't we talk about what led you to transform your career from corporate marketer to stress relief expert? Because you quit your job, right, and then you moved to Seattle.
I did. Well, not all at once at that time, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, my stress relief journey actually started back in 2008. I had a perfect storm of stressful activities, both professionally and family related, that culminated in me getting diagnosed with stress-induced diabetes. Yet when I got the diabetes, I didn't listen to my body about what stress was doing to it. So what I did was I just
Mhm.
kept on burning the candle at both ends, like a lot of us do, for another 10 years until I ended up in the emergency room and then in the ICU with a severe
Wow.
case of diabetic ketoacidosis. And for your listeners that may not know that, that basically meant that my body was eating itself alive because of my stress. And that was a
Wow.
a wide open awakening for me because I realized that if I kept doing what I was doing then, that I wouldn't be around to meet my future grandchildren. And I had to change. And
Mm.
so what happened, and it was interesting because I was actually in the ICU. The second day in ICU, it was a 3-day stay. The second day in the ICU, my boss actually texted me
Mhm.
and at around 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "You have a webinar you need to run at 8 o'clock. What are you going to do about it?" And
Wow.
I jumped into, she knew that I was in the ICU, and I started trying to reschedule it
Wow.
with my phone. And my blood sugars, which were so high when I was admitted to the hospital that the medical grade glucometers couldn't read
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
they were coming down into more normal ranges. They shot straight back up. And it
Mhm.
took a nurse who came
Mhm.
and saw my number and said, "You realize that's what put you in this hospital bed in the first place." And that was the epiphany
Mhm.
moment for me. And I knew I needed to change. And so 2 days
Mhm.
later, I resigned from my position. I was lucky enough that I managed my money well enough that I could afford to do that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then what I did was I started applying various stress relief tools and techniques
Mhm.
to reduce my stress. And what I noticed was not only did my stress go down, but so did my glucose numbers as a diabetic.
Mhm.
My weight went down, and then my energy went way, way up. It was like
Mhm.
I had discovered the fountain of youth. And
Mhm.
so, what I ended up doing is writing a book about it, and then becoming a coach based
Mhm.
on what lessons I learned, and
Mhm.
that was all from the encouragement of my peers and friends and family.
Mhm. So your PhD was that in stress, or like what did you get a PhD on?
Marketing.
Oh, so you went, wow, so from corporate market. So anyway, that wasn't really a good job anyway, because like what kind of boss will actually it's and I see you and ask you to the presentation the next day? I mean, like that's kind of crazy. I mean, like that's like one of the reason I quit corporate, and then like, I think you did it you did the right thing to quit corporate, and then do something that you actually love. Yeah, tell me, like, I mean, what was it? I'm just curious, like, in terms of your corporate career, like how big of a stress was the corporate job giving you as well?
Oh, a lot of stress.
Mhm.
You know, the problem that we have is with technology, we're always connected.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, I would go home, and, after working good 9, 10 hours in the office, and I'd go home and I'd be checking my email and everything until I went to bed. And then on the way into the office, I would be checking my emails and stuff. So you're never disconnected. And so the problem is when you don't take the time to recharge. So, for example, if you're checking your messages, whether they're text,
Mhm.
email, whatever, in the evenings, on the weekends, on your vacation, you
Mhm.
don't give yourself an opportunity to recharge. And if you don't give yourself an
Mhm.
opportunity to recharge, you effectively haven't stopped working. And
Yep.
that's what
Exactly.
happened to me. And it's just it was just very, very, very unhealthy. And
Mhm.
many times the we feel like we have to do that because that's what is expected of us.
Mhm.
However, if you trade your career for your physical and or mental health, it is not a good trade.
Yep, yep. I mean, like, okay, so what do you think, like, of the people here is like, do you think how many people or percentage of people are you think are actually happy at work, or does corporate actually give them more stress than not?
Well, I don't know if it would be hard to say how many are actually happy, because each person defines their happiness. And
Mhm.
you know, just to say stress is bad, that's not actually correct. Not all stress is
Mhm.
bad. There's a term called eustress, which is we all, in whatever we do for our careers, there's always going to be some stress involved. But if the stress is good stress, such as it gets you to wake up in the morning and ready to go, and you want to
Mhm.
make sure to do the best job you can, that is actually a good stress, and people can be very happy with that. Where you run into the challenges is with negative stress, and that often happens when you do what's called ruminating.
Mhm.
And um, the ruminating happens with thinking about something that happened in the past that you continue to bring up and worry about, or stress about, or anxiety about something that's coming up in the future and you're worried about that. That is the
Mhm.
kind of stress that really affects our bodies and our minds. And so,
Mhm.
the happiness factor, if you are enjoying your work and you feel like you are contributing and you're making a difference, I think that that is perfectly fine, and you're not going to have anything to worry about. The people that are worrying about it are the ones that are very anxious, either with their job,
Mhm.
with their personal life, with their health, etc. Those are the things where you have to really look at doing something.
Exactly. Abdul said it's better to have a peace of mind rather than your mind going to pieces. That is very true.
Absolutely, that's a great comment. It is very true.
Yeah, yeah. Very great comment, Abdul. Where are you from? Yeah, so we got smart listeners here. Professor Pete, like when did you quit your corporate job? What year was that?
That was in 2018.
Oh wow. Okay. So basically like you become an entrepreneur right after, like you started from scratch pretty much. Like you know the this particular stress relief business, right?
Well, yes, but I was
Mhm.
also an entrepreneur before that too, because I've
Mhm.
owned a landscaping business since 2005.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't new to me. And then
Mhm.
prior to back in the days when the internet first started in the mid 90s, I had a internet marketing company as well. So entrepreneurship was not something that was new to me. It was, but it was. I knew that it was time for me to get back into it full time.
Got it. And then you've always been in marketing, right? You even have a PhD in marketing. So actually now I am curious, like, what do you think is the secrets of marketing? Like if someone wants to get into entrepreneurship. So I'm actually just asking this, like, out of curiosity, because like you've been marketing, your entire career, right? So it's like,
Yes.
what if someone wants to get into entrepreneurship, like what would you advise them regarding marketing?
Oh, that's good. Well, so it starts all with the fact that you have to differentiate. And so you
Mm-hmm.
have to differentiate. You have to have something that is you can rise you above all the noise out there,
Mm-hmm.
because there's tons of messages. Each consumer is getting inundated with thousands of messages per day. So how do you get rise above that? The other thing from an entrepreneurship, from a marketing perspective, is to truly understand who your target audience is.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I like to do is I like to put myself in the shoes of who my target audience is.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that they want? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the great acronyms I like to use with that is WIFM. What's in it for me?
Mm-hmm.
Why should your target audience care about what you're trying to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can clarify what's why should your target audience care, and
Mm-hmm.
you can come up with the messaging around that, then it's a matter of being very effective at choosing what channels are going to be able to get you in front of those key people.
Got it. So you do agree that people have to niche down, like,
Oh yeah.
okay. So it's like, you know what? I'm guilty of this. Like I haven't really niched down. I kind of use attraction marketing, and then like,
Mhm.
and then I interview my clients, they interview me, and then see we're a good fit. And then like so far it's been well, but then I do have my ideal clients. So I'm gonna niche towards more that ideal clients later. Okay. So let's talk about the landscape business. Like, so I'm
Sure.
I'm curious, like how so you started that what year? Like you said
So
2000.
I bought it in 2005. It was a failing business.
Oh, got it, got it. So you had a full-time job and you were doing landscaping on the side as well. Oh,
Yes.
that's yeah. So that's kind of how I started yeah. Tell like you were in where did you live before you moved to Seattle?
Oh, I lived most of my life in the San Francisco Bay Area, and primarily in the East Bay.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. We
So
were in,
just
yeah, Bay Area. So tell me.
up 680 from you, Christine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I used to live in East Bay, Hayward too. So yeah, tell me
Mhm.
more about that landscaping business. Like, are you like did you hire a contractors, or were you doing the work, or like you did you own? I mean, like how did you run that business?
So when I bought it, basically I had to manage the employees. We have technicians, trained
Mm,
technicians that go into our customer locations to take care of the plants. And so what I would do is I would manage those people, and then in addition, whenever somebody was sick, because we were very lean. Whenever somebody was sick, I would go out and do the work if needed.
mhm,
I'd also go and visit customers just to do quality control and making sure that the customers were happy, so that they knew
mhm,
who was in charge, and they had my direct number. Um,
mhm,
and then after turning it around from heading for failure to growing, then I
mhm.
started expanding it. I brought on a partner, and we built it into the fourth largest interior landscaper in the Bay Area.
Oh, that's cool. So and that's like kind of your two major business right now is the landscaping and the stress relief coaching, right? Right
Correct.
now.
Correct.
Cool, cool, awesome, awesome. So actually, so okay. So I know it's coronavirus right now, so I'm not sure. Okay, actually, before we get there, so I'm curious, like, who is your niche? Because like we're talking about niche, like I mean, it can't be just everyone with stress, right? Because like
Mhm.
almost everyone has a stress. So like, who are you niching towards?
Typically, it's going to be somebody that is a hard driving leader. It's somebody
Mm,
who is just working way too many hours and
mm-hmm,
knows that they shouldn't be, but doesn't know how to, you know, get out of that situation. And so a good example would be, if you think about it, an entrepreneur who's working way too many hours. That's a perfect example. It could be an executive or a director who is so exhausted, wants to accomplish certain goals, but is getting in their own way because they're working so hard that they're not working effectively, and
mm-hmm,
doing too much multitasking, which is a horrible thing for productivity. I mean, it's the opposite of what we think. How many
mm-hmm,
times have you been in a meeting where or a conference room or something, and the conversation is going on, but people are looking at their email, they're looking at their phones, they're
mm-hmm,
being distracted by all these other messages. Well, the fact of the matter is we can't multitask effectively because our brains have to focus on what's the task at hand and then look to the
mm-hmm,
next task. And there's this ramp up, ramp down that happens in between tasks. And so just, it all comes to the fact that we feel like we have to look busy. And if
mm-hmm,
how many people, especially in the corporate side, you come in and you ask them, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm busy, I'm so busy. They're bragging about being so busy that they can't have a chance to go out for lunch to get some food. They have to eat at their desk, or they haven't been
mm-hmm,
able to do anything other than work, 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 work. Well,
mm-hmm,
that isn't impressive to me. That's somebody who has an issue with time management, because chances are
mm-hmm,
they're not focusing enough to be able to get their tasks done in a reasonable time. So it's a matter of looking at that and saying, okay, are there things that are distracting them? A perfect example for me, my daughter,
mm-hmm,
who's working as on her nurse practitioner degree at Emory, she has this ability to do a lot of work, but I've seen her where her phone all of a sudden texts and she's focused on something, and then she's immediately looking at that, and then she has to go back to whatever she was working on. And
mm-hmm.
she'll be up until in all late hours or early morning time. And I always wonder, I think if she turned her phone off for a couple hours, how much more effective she would be getting her work done.
Mm. So what do you think is the reason that drive these people to just work, 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 work? Is that an issue of like self-worth that they have to prove to people, a competitive nature? Like, what's driving this behavior of people?
Yeah, it depends. There's those of us that might feel like they're perfectionists and they have to do
Mm,
everything right, and they're not willing to let it go until it's perfect.
mm,
That's one. Another one is right what you're saying about the self worth, where they feel like, oh my gosh, I'm an imposter, the imposter syndrome, where I'm not feeling like I really should be in this position, so I have to work extra hard to prove my worth.
mm.
It
Got
could
it.
be the
Got
fact that they don't feel a good connection with their manager. In fact, a book I wrote several years ago
it. Mm-hmm.
did research around during the dot-com boom and bust about why were people leaving companies. And the number one
Mm-hmm.
reason people were leaving companies was their relationship with their manager. And
Yep,
so
exactly.
yeah, so if they don't have
That's
a good
my
relationship
reason.
with their manager, they feel like,
Mm.
well, they better work harder, because if they don't, they could be the next one to get let go. So it's
Yeah.
any number of things, but yeah, I remember when we started getting the phones, the smartphones, and I thought at first it's like, oh great, I can check my messages and I don't have to be in front of my computer. But then all of a sudden it became I got to be checking it at all hours of the day or night because my boss is texting me, and I got to respond back. If my boss texts me, I have to respond. Well, that isn't necessarily the case. That might be
Mhm.
what you feel like, but
Mhm.
potentially, if you were to have a conversation with your boss and find out, is the expectation there? Some bosses do. Most bosses probably wouldn't. They just wanted to get it off of their plate and get it into your inbox. You don't. They're not expecting you to respond at all hours of the day or night.
Got it. Okay, Abdul made a comment. That is why I use what I call block time or time block. I actually did a
Yeah.
post about time blocking a couple of days ago. When you block off segments of time to get things done, everything else is put on pause. This way I get at least 7 things checked off on my to-do list versus nothing by so-called multitasking. So what
Yes.
about you? How do you manage your time, Pete? I mean, like time management is very critical to managing your stress too, right? Otherwise, like you probably never get things done. That's a cause of stress. So how do you manage your time?
Oh, that's it. I do the same thing. I block off of time in my calendar. For example,
Mm-hmm.
my wife has she works as she's a hospital laboratory tech, and so
Mm-hmm.
her hours she works 10-hour shifts, and
Mm-hmm.
so she doesn't have the weekends off. So I make
Mm-hmm.
sure that Mondays, when that's typically a day that she has off, I block that out in my calendar because
Mm-hmm.
that is going to be a day that the two of us can spend together. So it's a matter of looking at your personal time, what you need to do to get accomplished. If you have a project and
Mm-hmm.
you figure that it's going to take you 2 hours, consider it a meeting. You put block time off. That's a meeting,
Yep.
but you have to also be,
Exactly.
yeah, you have to treat it like a meeting, like somebody was going to, you were going to be in a
Exactly.
meeting with somebody. If you
Yep.
block the time and then you go and you start screwing off or uh, you know
Mm-hmm.
looking at Facebook posts that are not relevant or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
going to help you. You have to be able to
Mm-hmm.
utilize that time that you're blocking. And so that's a
Yep.
really good time from a time management standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is prioritizing your time. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to look at it. One of the things that I like to do is at the beginning of the day, I look at what my tasks are for the day that I need to do, the appointments, my
Mm-hmm.
tasks, things that I have to do. I prioritize those and I make sure that the
Mm-hmm.
top priority ones get done. And the ones that don't get done, they get moved to the next day. So
Mm-hmm.
it's you just have to be okay with making sure that you take care of what is absolutely the most important things.
Got it. So I'm just curious. So the people who come to you, what are their like top three stresses lately?
Well, no surprise here, career wise, that's number one. They're
Mm-hmm.
either stuck in their career or they're worried about losing. In fact, I
Mm-hmm.
was working with a couple former colleagues who, over the weekend, were convinced that they were going to get laid off because
Got
they
it.
they got the messages that there were going to be layoffs,
Yeah.
and they thought that they were both in line for this, and they jumped to conclusions. So it was a matter of just having a conversation to calm them down and realize that you have to you, if it is going to happen, you can't control that if the decision has already been made. And that's one of the biggest problems that um, people have right now, especially with the whole COVID epidemic. We don't have control over what the government is going to do about it, what your company is going to do about it. The only thing you can control is yourself. And so if you focus on the situation that's stressing you out, and as humans, our nature is to stress on all aspects of a stressful situation. If you separate it out into
Mm-hmm.
what you can control and what you can't control and focus as much attention on what you can control, your stress is going to go way, way down because what you can't
Yep.
control, you can affect change. So those are the kind of things in a career standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
second
Mm-hmm.
most common is family situation, working at home, and be, being with your significant other, your kids for 24 hours a day.
Oh
And
my God.
that
Yeah.
is number two. And actually, I would say that, uh, basically kind of a derivative of that is just being isolated from their other people that they're used to
Yep.
being around. So they're stuck with, it's a bad word to say stuck, but they're stuck with their family and their kids. And
Uh-huh.
they want to spend time with their friends, but they couldn't and stuff. So
Yeah.
those are the three big ones that were coming up during the COVID crisis.
Got it. So, well, I'm just curious, like, what about money? Like,
Mhm.
do you see a lot people stressing about money as well when, for the clients that come to you?
Absolutely. It all focuses around the career actually, because
Oh, yeah,
if you
that's
think
right.
about right, because
Hmm.
if you think about it, so
Yeah.
when I wrote the stress book last year, Lighten Your Day. Lighten is an acronym for 7 areas of your life that cause you stress,
Hmm.
and the
Yep.
L is your livelihood or your career. It's the number one there,
Yep.
and so
Yeah.
anytime that you start worrying about money and how you're going to bring in more money, it can
Hmm.
be a huge stressor, and it's often the number one
Yep.
problem that couples have. They
Yep.
fight about money, and so
Exactly.
it's really important to have. I know you and I have talked about this before, Christine, of
Hmm.
having a positive relationship with money. It
Hmm.
is so critical
Hmm.
because money is a tool. I look at it as when you have money and you use the money to buy something else or pay a bill or whatever it happens to
Hmm.
be, you are exchanging energy. And when
Hmm.
you have a positive thought process about paying that bill or
Hmm.
paying for something
Yep.
with the money, and you're grateful for exchanging your money for whatever that service or the bill or whatever it is that you got received, it is a
Hmm.
much more positive encounter. And when you're positive about your relationship with money, more
Hmm.
money is going to come your way.
Exactly, exactly. I love that. So I know you told me that okay, you grew up in a poor, dysfunctional family environment. Your parents were just often late with rent and couldn't even afford regular grocery shopping. So how did you transform your relationship with money? I mean, you grew up with this like not learning about money from your family. Like, how did you learn that yourself and transform that by yourself? Like, like I mean, did you had to hire a coach before? Did you learn on your own? Like, how did that happen?
I actually learned on my own.
Mhm.
When you grow up in an extremely dysfunctional family, one of the things that I decided to do is I would look and I'd say, "This is not what I want to be. So what can I
Yep.
do differently?"
Mhm.
So
Yep.
even at a young age, I started saving money, and so
Okay.
so I had money to buy things for myself because I would work. I worked at a very young age, so I made my own money. And
Mhm.
then when I got started my career after college, I paid my way through college,
Wow.
and I went ahead and back in the days where I was a manager at a Radio Shack store. I mean, it
Mhm.
was, and it was horrible because
Wow.
I usually averaged about $3.50 an hour. It was horrible, but I
Mhm.
was able to pay my way through college that way. And once I started working for companies after I graduated, I was, the 401ks and stuff started coming, and I just started putting as much as I
Mhm.
could away. And that's what I did. And even through my divorce, I got divorced back in 2013. Um,
Mhm.
I kept on just putting money away, money away, money away, because
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just,
Mhm.
the fact that not having it as a kid, I never wanted to feel like that as an adult. And so it was
Mhm.
just a learned behavior that I had. And the interesting thing is I don't obsess over it though. So one of the things is somebody can go too far. And I have friends who, money is everything to them. Doesn't matter. They can they just want to make as much as they possibly can. Be and never enjoy it. And I just it's to me. that I'm sure we've all heard that saying,
Yeah.
you can't take it with you. It's
Yeah.
true. So if
Yep.
I have no issues about people making a whole bunch of money, and I'm
Mhm.
always
Mhm.
happy for people, because you want to be happy for,
Mhm.
it's all about that energy. But if they're not doing
Mhm.
anything with that money, if they're still miserable, I worked with
Yep.
a,
Yep.
a, a director at a very large company who has an
Mhm.
enormous wealth, and yet
Mhm.
she was not happy.
Yep.
You know,
So
she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy at home. She wasn't happy with her family. And
yeah.
so money is not the answer. Money is, again, it's an energy to get other things you want,
Mhm.
but it's
Yeah.
not the answer.
Yeah, I think there's some deeper issues there. And then like you might have all the money in the world, but I think like if you haven't healed your traumas and it's like then you don't have any connections or relationship, you can't be happy. You need both to be happy.
Correct. Correct. You have to, and
And it's
you just,
interesting.
yeah, you have to
But
have, it's all about the relationship. And
mhm.
so if if you have trouble being able to save money, or if you have trouble, or if you don't know where your money's going, that's one
Mhm.
of those classic ones. Because
Yep.
if you don't track where it's going, one of the things that I like to do is, I keep track of where my money goes, so that I can do budgeting for myself.
Mhm.
And so whether you use a Quicken or something like that, a tool that at least lets you know where is your money going. That's the
Mhm.
first insight that you have. And in fact, somebody gave me a book many years ago that said you should track it down to the penny. I don't do it that far, but I do track what I buy. I also, I budget, I plan for stuff. And then you have to also figure that there's always going to be the unplanned expenses. So
Mhm.
you have to plan for those as well.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it's really interesting because like some people if they grow up in dysfunctional family, they become as dysfunctional as their parents. But with you, somehow you were able to use that and like, oh, I don't want to be like them. So you actually learn from that from a young age and then to be motivated to be not like them. So you actually had a good relationship with money because you made the decision at a young age, to change your relationship, right?
Yeah,
So how is your do you have siblings or just
I have one sister.
okay, so how is she? Like did she I mean, how's her relationship with money considering you guys, grew up from the same parents? Like did she also did she recover from her relationship with money as much as you?
No, no, she has a
Mm-hmm.
little more challenge with that. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. We're definitely two different people, and so she has a different thought process with that, and it's a much more of a challenge for her. As it's
Mm-hmm.
just her experience and my experience. We're 9 years apart, and so
Mm-hmm.
there it's interesting. What she experienced with the dysfunctional childhood was different than what I experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
she basically wanted to work at a very young age. In fact, she went full-time work at 18 when she graduated high school. And
Oh.
she decided not to do college because she wanted to just make money. And that is kind of like what happened, knowing that there wasn't a lot of money as kids.
Yep.
Um, but then once she started working full time, it was hard for her to go back and want to go to school. She wasn't much of a school person
Oh,
anyway.
got it.
So yeah, she was limited in terms of with her education as to what she wanted to do.
Got it. Okay. So what about your parents? How are they doing now financially, if you don't mind? I'm just
Sure.
curious.
So, well,
Mm-hmm.
my father passed away back in
Mm-hmm.
2008,
Mm-hmm.
and he was, for the last 25 years, roughly, of his life, he was living off of the inheritance from my grandparents. My mom's still
Oh.
alive. She only has Medicare, Medi-Cal. She lives in California, and I
Mm-hmm.
subsidize her. She lives in a condo that I own. and she
Got
would
it.
be able to live on her own if it wasn't for the
Got
subsidized
it. Got it.
idea.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's awesome to hear, your story about that. Like, it actually motivated you, like to get your PhD, like you
Mhm.
had a successful career. Now you have two successful businesses. So okay, I mean, so I'm just curious, like, I mean, so for your coaching, so do you, are you getting most of your, where are you getting your clients right now? Because like you say you're targeting the executives and,
Mhm.
like directors, like, are you getting them on LinkedIn or somewhere else? Like, how are you doing your marketing?
I do a lot on LinkedIn, but most of my
Mm-hmm.
clients come as referrals. So
Oh,
somebody
okay.
that I either worked with or knows of what I do. That's how I do it. But I mean, you see me on LinkedIn. You and I both are very active, and so I continue to contribute a lot of content there. So I go by the adage that it's that what karma, that basically if I provide a lot of free content that I give
Mm,
away,
mm,
that it's going to come back to me in a positive way. And
mm-hmm.
that's again talking about the energy that we talked about earlier. It's all
Yep.
about having an energy mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
if you send out that positive energy, it'll come
Mm-hmm.
back to you.
Yep. Abdul said, "Loving your truth, Pete."
Oh,
Yeah.
Abdul, I really appreciate that. That's very
Yeah.
kind of you.
Yeah. Oh, Joseph from Singapore is on. Hi, Joseph. Yeah, I see a lot of people saying hi. Okay. So all right. So if you can just give advice to people, what is a stress relief tip that people can use right now?
Sure. So I kind of alluded to it with the
Mm-hmm.
don't try and control the uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll just repeat that one first. That if you are faced with a very stressful situation, separate out what you can and can't control about
Exactly.
it. Because,
Exactly.
and I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say that you have a difficult boss. If you have a difficult boss, you can't control the boss, right? You can't. They potentially can control you, but you can't control the boss.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Exactly.
so you have to say, okay, the only thing you can control is yourself, how you show up each day,
Mm-hmm.
you do your work, your attitude, etc. Those are the kind of things that if you can focus on that, and things like there's ways that you can talk to your boss and try and figure out solutions to things that might be bothering you about the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But take action on what you can control and try as best as you can to just put aside the things you can't control, because the
Mm-hmm.
things you can't control are going to take up your mind share. It's going to give you this anxiety you don't need, and you're not going to be productive. But you will be productive, and your stress will go down if you feel like you have some control over the areas that you do focus on. So that's one that I highly, highly recommend. Another one is if you are thinking about where you're at with your career, let's say, and maybe you're at a point in your career where it's time, or a crossroads where it's time to think about doing something else, maybe because you want to make more money, maybe it's because you want to have more free time, etc. One of the things that I highly, highly recommend is to do personal values work on that area of your life. And what
Mm-hmm.
I can do is I can give a link for everybody. I have a very easy technique that people can use to determine what their personal values are, whether it be for their career, for their relationships, for their family, for their health, for example. So that's something that I'd highly encourage people to go and look at. It's a very simple thing. It just takes a few minutes to figure it out. But what's great about knowing what your personal values are for your career or whatever area of your life
Mm-hmm.
is that when you have the next time that you have a important decision to make in that area of your life, you want to make sure that that decision is in alignment with the top 5 values you have for that area. Because if it's not, I guarantee you, you are going to add stress to your life.
Yep, yep. Got. Oh, Jennifer is saying that you have a very soothing voice.
Oh,
And then
thank you very much.
I was joking with her. What about mine? You didn't say anything about mine in the chat room. And she said, of course yours too, because it's your presentation. I was just teasing her. Okay. Yeah, my friend Elaine is online. Yeah, Elaine. Hi Elaine. She's actually a local friend of mine. Okay, love the content. Okay, yeah, thanks. That's oh so someone asked a question. Let me go back to the
Sure.
comment. Okay. So Asanul asks, have a little question. Persons who struggle too much in life to earn the minimum wages might have a high phobia of losing money that keeps them stressed for a long period. How can they relieve from this stress?
That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
It's so basically what that likely is there's an anxiety that is happening that has happened in their life previously. Because if they're only making minimum wage and stuff,
Yeah.
something happened to them earlier that restricted them from being able to do more. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I recommend with that is, personal values work looks really good, but in terms of
Mm-hmm.
that anxiety,
Yeah.
it's all of a great technique that someone can do is visualization.
Oh, yep.
So if let's say you've got anxiety about the fact that, oh, I'm struggling from paycheck to paycheck. Well, what would
Yeah.
you want? What would you want? And you start thinking about, all right,
Yep.
let me set a goal. What is it that I want?
Yep.
And I'm not talking about I'm going to go from minimum wage to being a millionaire overnight, because that's, unless you win the
Mm-hmm.
lottery, that's probably not going to happen. So, but what is it a realistic goal that you can strive for? And
Mm-hmm.
when you start thinking about what can life be, visualizing it, you set your goal and you start thinking about it. Like with me, when I work with my clients, we set a particular goal, and then I walk them through a visualization exercise where they actually imagine attaining that goal. And that
Mm-hmm.
goal could be anything from uh, getting a new house, getting that
Yep.
new
Yep.
job, getting that promotion, getting an increase in pay, getting
Mm-hmm.
a new car, getting a relationship, whatever it happens to be. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's all about believing in yourself. And what I have found more than anything else is that
Mm-hmm.
it's all about fear. When we're
Yeah.
stopping ourselves
Yep.
from making the money we want or
Mm-hmm.
getting whatever it is that we want, it's all about fear. And I don't know, Christine, if you know, I like to use
Mm-hmm.
the acronym FEAR. Do you know what the acronym FEAR stands
Nope.
for?
No.
Fictional evidence appearing real. Fictional
I
evidence
like that.
appearing real. It is. It's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I do is I talk to people who are fearful about doing something, and I say to them, because they're worried that they'll fail. They won't be able to
Yep.
do it.
Yep.
Failure is all about fear, right?
Yep.
So I ask a simple question, and this for everybody that's listening, I ask yourself this question whenever you doubt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Ask yourself, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Mm. I love that. I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Think
Mm-hmm.
about the
Mm-hmm.
energy around that. It's all
Mm-hmm.
positive. What happens goes back to what I was mentioning earlier about visualization.
Mm-hmm.
It's you visualize what is possible.
Yep.
And
Law
that
of attraction.
it's the law of attraction. You
Yep.
got it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Actually, that is very good because then, yeah, if you're broke, always, it's so easy for you to just focus. Oh, I'm only making minimum wage. I'll never get enough. So I think to make them focus on visualization, what they want, it will shift your mindset. Then it's actually make you want to go that route, and hopefully they'll start to take action too, right? Then at least they will get closer and closer to their goal. So I
Absolutely.
did a funny post. I did a funny post yesterday. I said top 3 reasons people stay broke. Number 1, they visualize being rich. Number two, they do nothing. Number three, they repeat one and two. so 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 you still have
Absolutely.
to do something. Okay, you visualize, but you have to do something. So you
Yeah.
can't just visualize like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna be rich, whatever, and then you don't do anything. So you have to do inspired action too. So that's very important.
Absolutely. And a great way one step that's really fun is
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing visualization and you visualize what you want, if
Mm-hmm.
you it, some people are need to be more tangible. They need to have something that they can touch, feel in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can do a vision board or a vision
Mm-hmm.
binder,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just grab pictures from the internet and put them into that
Exactly.
collage. And
Yep. Yeah.
and if you keep it handy and you keep
Mm-hmm.
looking at it,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to reinforce what you want.
Yeah. Say again, like, why is visualization so powerful? Like, why is that? Like, what about our brain and when we put something in a vision board that made it easier to come through?
Well, because what we're doing is that we're sending a signal to our brain. So there's
Mm-hmm. Yep.
there's we have both our conscious and our unconscious mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Our
Yep. Yep.
conscious mind is a 5% of our brain. And
Mm-hmm.
what it does is it's your creative side,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also your inner critic. And what
Yeah.
happens though is that your conscious mind can say, "Ooh, I want to accomplish this," and just saying it, that's fine. But what happens is if you don't start visualizing it and really starting to believe it, your unconscious mind doesn't connect with that. And the real change happens in your unconscious mind, your other 95% of your brain. And a lot of people have said, "Oh, well, I don't really worry about my unconscious. It has nothing to do with me." Well, then I say, have you ever gotten behind the wheel of a car and driven from point
Mm-hmm.
A to point B and had absolutely no memory of that drive? And they'll go, yes. Well, guess what? That was your unconscious mind driving because it's running your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. To do the visualization, it helps connect your conscious mind with your unconscious mind so that
Mm-hmm.
both are connected to help you reach the goal. If one is
Mm-hmm.
going one direction and the other is
Exactly.
going the other direction, you're not going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
They
Got it.
have to be, yeah.
I love the explanation, even with law of attraction. So like, so the thing I think like even me like it took me a long time to get it. So the thing with law of attraction is that you have to you have to feel it first to be able to attract it. Like for
Mhm.
example, like like I am rich. Like well, it has to resonate with you too, right? So like when I say like I am rich now, like it resonates with me now. So because then like I am thinking that like no, my energy changed and shifted to one of abundance, and I'm attracting, like when I say I love money, so I'm shifting my energy so that way I will attract that. You're opening up your vibration, so it's easier because then law of attraction is about you're attracting like versus like and like. It's not a magnet like positive and negative. So law of attraction is different. It's like versus like. You change it your vibration so you can attract what you want. So I
Absolutely.
yep,
Yep.
and visualization kind of does the same thing too because then you're visualizing what you want, then you're attracting, you're opening the vibration so you can attract what you want based on what you're visualizing. So I love that.
Absolutely.
It's so
Yeah.
powerful.
And
Yeah.
the thing I would add to that too, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a great description on terms of the power of law of attraction, is
Mm-hmm.
our definition of what is rich. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because I consider myself a very rich man, and it's not just because I've invested well and I have different sources of income. I'm a very rich man
Mm-hmm.
because I have healthy kids that are doing very well. I have
Mm,
a
yep,
wife
yep.
who loves me very much. I have a
Mm-hmm.
roof over my head.
Yep.
I've got my physical health. And those are things that
Yep.
are also part of being rich.
Yes,
So,
exactly, exactly. So it's like whatever your definition of rich is. Of course, like enough money to whatever like fit your lifestyle. Because remember, you can bring your money to you when you're dead. So I'm actually I'm not a fan of the like FIRE movement. I mean, like to some extent. So FIRE means financial independence retire early. Because what happened? They actually did a documentary about this. Because what happened was that people get too too stingy that they like, I'm gonna save 80% so that way they can get to their future goal of retiring early. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but then like sometimes like it get you to the point where like you're not really enjoying your life much right now because like you're hoping for a future to retire early. So I don't really agree with that because like for me, I'm about you living a balanced life, like enjoying life now, but at the same time plan for your future, because then you have to balance it up between like you don't know when you're gonna die, so it's still enjoy today, but enjoy today is still also planning for your future. So I'm all about living a happy life every single day, what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled. And if you're stressed at work, then I don't know, maybe that's not what you want to do, right? Maybe
Right.
you need to quit your job or something. So it's really all about a balance. So okay, so you I know you wrote your book. Why don't you talk to us about your book, and what's it about, and what can people gain about it, what's it called, and do you have any other stress relief resources you can recommend?
Sure. So the book's called Lighten Your
Mm-hmm.
Day: Fast, Easy, and Effective Stress
Mm-hmm.
Relief for when you know what happens. And so it has over a
Mm-hmm.
hundred quick and easy stress relief tips. It's based on
Mm-hmm.
being able to focus on someone who, you know, very few of us have the time to read a 300-page book on meditation or deep breathing or yoga. This is for I have 5 minutes and I need to figure out something to help me calm down before I have this really important meeting, presentation, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Mm-hmm.
Lightning, as I mentioned earlier, it's an acronym that stands for the 7 areas of your life that are
Mm-hmm.
giving you stress. So
Mm-hmm.
the L stands for your livelihood, or your career. I
Mm-hmm.
stands for your imagination or your conscious mind. We talked about the 5%. The
Mm-hmm.
So the G stands for genius or your unconscious mind, because that's where real change happens.
Mm-hmm.
H stands for your physical health. T stands for time, because we got to have time, and once time's
Mm-hmm.
gone, you can't get it back. E is your environment, so your environment needs to be supportive of your stress relief efforts. And N, last but not
Yep.
least, is your network of relationships, your friends,
Yeah.
family, coworkers, etc. And so the
Yeah.
book has tips based on each of those areas, and and
Mm.
it's designed so
Yep.
that you
Yep.
give it a try. Try one tip. If it works, great. Keep using it, because over time that tip will benefit you big time. If it doesn't work, you only spent a few minutes. Try another one. And for all the listeners, if can I put in the live comments the link, because they can go and get all the free tips that I have up.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
sure, sure. Of course. Of course. Yeah, yeah. You can drop your link there, and then so people can go. And then like I will tag you in this live afterwards anyway, so that way then that way people can go to your profile and connect with you if you need to.
Oh
Okay?
yes, please.
Yeah.
I'm definitely open to that. I don't
Yeah.
see how I can get it in the live comments, so I guess I'll put it in
Uh
the private chat.
yeah, you just do it afterwards. So maybe
Oh,
just
okay.
go back to the live and then just drop it there. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
no
might
worries.
be because yeah, you need to go directly to go LinkedIn to drop it there.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'll
so we're
just let
almost at the hours. Oh,
I was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, I'll just
Mhm.
let the listeners know that personal values thing. I'll put that link in there, and then link to
Mhm.
the other tips, so that they can go and pick one that or more that they like.
Yeah, sure. Or just message me and I can actually put it on the post as well, so people can click there. So
Okay,
I'll tag you and then put your link in that post. Okay.
perfect.
All right. So Pete, how can people find you? Where do you hang out mostly?
Oh, I do a lot of time on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach
Mhm.
out to me at Professor Pete Alexander. That's why I branded myself professor. I am a professor,
Mhm.
but Pete Alexander, you'll find hundreds, if not thousands, of them. But I
Yep.
think there's only one Professor Pete Alexander.
Yep. That's a good brand.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so yeah, thank you so much guys for joining. I think it's late for some people. I saw some people say good night. So thank you for those who still stayed, and then thank you Professor Feed for joining. I really appreciate this, and then I'll be converting this into a podcast, so hopefully launch it this weekend, so yours will be one of the episode there. So
Perfect. Well, Christine, thank you so much for having me on, and I really appreciate all the listeners tuning in as well.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night. Bye bye, guys.
Bye bye.